Attaboy.
And we are here today with Thomas Iland to talk about ableism and supporting neurodiverse workplace environments. Thomas, you have a book that just came out recently, and you are a wealth of information. So I think the best place to start is really just maybe talking a little bit about what ableism is for those who maybe are not as familiar with it or need some clarification.
Certainly. So, yes, I'm Thomas Iland. I'm a 37-year-old man with autism living in Los Angeles, California. And the book that Michelle mentioned there is Come to Life, Your Guide to Self-Discovery. And this book contains my secrets to success, including some of my employment experiences and what I learned from those experiences, because I am a certified public accountant out here in California. And about 5 years ago, I realized I don't like this line of work. And it took me a lot of trial and error, a lot of tribulations and triumphs to get to this point. But now I realize I want to help people, specifically families on the autism spectrum, in order to create opportunities to realize their full potential. And I started my own coaching business. ComeToLifeCoaching.com is the website. But to get to your topic about ableism, I had some experience with that during my time in the workplace, and a little bit of a background and a definition of it, or at least my meaning of it, is underestimating potential and overlooking possibilities. Whenever we look at someone on the autism spectrum in an interview and they're not looking you in the eye, they're not answering the question directly, or they seem a little odd to you, immediately the recruiter thinks to him or herself, okay, next, and just writes them off. And that is a huge disservice and could be a form of ableism to some. And a real life example I recently heard on the news, I don't know if you know the Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. She called people with Down syndrome the R word. And that is ableism in and of itself. The same way if you were to call an African American the N word, that's racism. And ableism happens a lot in today's society when we dismiss or discount their needs and struggles, along with discount or dismiss their strengths and capabilities. We tend to see that we need the cream of the crop, but the people on the autism spectrum and other disabilities get left behind to have no job at all, or aren't working enough hours to make ends meet, or working for subpar wages. And that's not right. So there needs to be a lot more improvement in today's society in order to see the potential and the possibilities more than the problems and the perils.
Thank you so much for that. The unemployment rate for the autistic population it's disgusting. And you're right, like kind of with more attention to the environment, with more attention to creating possibilities and opportunities, that percentage would go way down. And it would make for a more enriching work environment if we had neurodiverse work experiences all across North America. What is some of the barriers that are in place that support ableism, and what are ways that individuals, especially recruiters, can take into account to overcome ableism bias?
So I think some of the barriers or some of the inherent risks or information gaps in certain work environments are what's called soft skills, because take someone with autism, for example, they might be very good at technical skills like working a computer and inputting information, but soft skills, interpersonal skills that can transfer from job to job essentially and work in multiple environments. The examples of these are how to talk with a coworker versus a manager versus a customer, how not to be the smelly person on the work floor, and little things we kind of take for granted that really have to be taught for people on the autism spectrum and other disabilities. This is being overlooked and not being addressed enough. So from a vocational level, the soft skills, what's going to work in multiple job environments, in multiple companies, in multiple industries, I think really needs to be taught more. And when it comes to barriers of employment or what companies can do, I think it's imperative that direct, explicit, and maybe often private instruction be given to bridge those information gaps rather than assume they know or think, they're never going to get, let them go, because that's going to just add to the problem. So when we have an open conversation, and when coworkers, and I personally had a lot of times where my colleagues or my coworkers helped me with information I did not know, or set me aside, like, let's go get a cup of coffee and have a talk about this. Little things like that can go a long way for someone struggling to find and keep employment.
That's really valuable, useful information, especially for those of us who are in the field that do teach vocational skills. Understanding that it's a lot of times the soft skills, right? It's not just the technical aspects of things and sort of like steps 1 through 10 we need you to complete, but also what happens if somebody comes over and interrupts you, and breaks that chain of what you're doing. How do you handle that? And also teaching that person that maybe if that said individual now is upset that you've broken their chain, understanding why that's problematic for them, and having that perspective, I think, on both sides is really, really helpful. You in your chapter gave so many really good examples, and I know before we started talking, you said that you had some real life examples you'd like to share. Is there any really solid examples that come to mind that you'd like to share with us today?
I'll tell you a little bit about my first real job experience, and then one that really put me on the path to what I do today. So when I first worked at Hollywood Video, if you ever remember those brick and mortar video rental stores where you could go get a movie off the shelf. So I started with that job while I was in high school. So before I graduated high school, I was finding and keeping work. And it was through a workability program. So a program within the school that gives people with disabilities jobs or access to employment opportunities. So I'm reshelving videos for months. My mother comes into the store one day and asks, "Are you going to teach him anything else besides reshelving videos?" And the manager of the store said, "We figure workability students can just reshelve videos." So I mentioned earlier, like, my potential being underestimated and possibilities being overlooked. From the very beginning, I had that happen to me in my career experience, and that kind of set up a not so good tone. Thankfully, I had my mother and people who saw more in me, and I believed that I was capable of more than what people were giving me credit for, that I expanded my horizons a bit. And fast forward to the job that I finally got, because I'd had part-time jobs, I'd had internships, I'd had temp jobs, never full-time permanent employment with benefits. That was a goal in my educational program, full-time permanent employment with benefits. And I worked multiple jobs for many years until I finally secured a job that would get me those things, full-time permanent employment with benefits. And I hadn't disclosed my diagnosis in the interview. I want to show employers that I'm otherwise qualified. I fit the job description. Well, about a week into this job, I found I was having difficulty, and I self-diagnosed, self-disclosed to my manager. And he said to me, "You lied to me in the interview. I don't have to help you, and I'm not going to." And that's illegal in a sense. And I wasn't asking him to move mountains or have the world revolve around me or anything. I wanted him to explain steps to me. I wanted him to maybe lessen my workload a little bit. But he had the impression that I hired you expecting you would know this. But I was overwhelmed, and he wasn't accommodating. And I even had HR and a job coach going to bat for me. But I resigned from that job after only 4 months. And all those years, all that trial and error, all of the experiences to finally get what I want, only to have my diagnosis thrown in my face. And I think that was the beginning of the end of my accounting career. Granted, I am in a much better career now since I left accounting behind. I do public speaking and human potential coaching and approaching organizations about why you should hire more people, more neurodiverse individuals. Granted, this terrible thing had to happen, but everything happens for a reason, and I'm going to make the most out of any unpleasant situation that I can.
I appreciate your courage, because I'm sure talking about that is so difficult. And I think for those that are allistic, hearing stories like that is really challenging. It really frames the world as being ableistic. for that individual to not feel the need to like kind of support you because they feel that you did something wrong just because of who you are, your identity, is discrimination. That shouldn't be tolerated. From there, like kind of want to move on to like kind of what you're creating right now. I want to hear more about like kind of the possibilities, and I want you to share more about your book and what the future for Thomas Iland entails.
Certainly. So after I left that firm, and granted, I resigned from that firm after 4 months, but my manager's manager did see the potential in me and offered me another position in the company. And I think it was to save the company from being sued or something in light of what happened. So I was basically a glorified receptionist for about 2 years after that resignation and created more value in the company. And during that time, I heard more and more stories of my peers crashing and burning in life because they did not know themselves. They did not love themselves. They were not being themselves. And I had this inkling that I had to really start telling my story on stages in front of audiences, reach out to people on a personal level, let organizations know that I've had struggles. Here's what I've learned. Please take this information and apply it to your clients or individuals that you serve. And about 5 years ago, I decided I'm not meant for accounting. Yes, the money's good. And I was making more than my dad at one point, but money cannot buy you happiness. And I felt I was meant for something bigger and greater than sitting at a desk all day crunching numbers. So I joined the Toastmasters International organization. They specialize in improving public speaking and communication and leadership. And in the summer of 2019, I became one of only 88 of their accredited speakers in the world. And I'm the only one on record on the autism spectrum to do this because I want to show myself, my peers, and the world that someone with a social communication disorder like autism can master the art of socializing and communicating, that is public speaking. And you can break barriers and you can overcome obstacles and you can make something bigger and greater of your life. So I teach public speaking. I just took on a client who is on the autism spectrum who wants to tell his story. So I'm going to coach him in public speaking. I also help people on the autism spectrum when it comes to dating, like love and relationships, independent living, making their own decisions and being accountable to those decisions, being open to what others have to say instead of their own my way or the highway type attitude if they might have one, and also discovering what their niche is, where they fit in. That's what we call it in Come to Life, finding your niche where you fit right in and can really shine and make a difference in the world, and finding and using your voice rather than just sitting back and waiting for life to come to you. It's up to you to come to life. And more people on and off the autism spectrum need to hear this message.
Such a beautiful, empowering, like I have chills. It's so amazing what you've been able to accomplish, and what you're doing for other people. And, you know, we were interviewing Megan Miller the other day and talking about how we need more champions. You know, we need more people out there who are willing to put themselves out there to take their struggles, and really just fight, fight for their rights, fight for other people, and be a model. And as you were talking, I'm just like, wow, he's such a champ, and it's amazing. Like it really is. And I think it's such an important message, like you said, for everyone, to not just let things happen, right? And to really step into their power and step into their voice. Thank you so much. I mean, this was so moving on so many levels, so inspiring. I'm almost like at a loss of words, which hardly ever happens. But yeah, I just, it's such an amazing thing, and a really beautiful story with such a beautiful outcome.
Thank you, Michelle. It's my pleasure.
We'll post a link so people can get your book. Because again, like kind of, you're right. This isn't just about being autistic or being holistic. Like kind of, this is necessary for everybody. There are so many people that are in jobs that are not the right fit for them, not the right environment. You're right. Like kind of, you need to be aware, you need to contact the present moment and like kind of find what you value and chase it and find your light, as you said. It's beautiful. Thank you so much. I think this is going to be so insightful for so many people. And again, applaud you for the inspiration that you give so many other people. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Jacob.